In every age of history, some leaders rose to power not to protect their people, but to control them with fear, cruelty, and violence. These rulers left behind a legacy written in blood, terror, and destruction. Today, we look at the 10 most evil rulers in human history and how their actions changed the world forever. Our story begins in ancient Rome with a ruler remembered for madness and brutality. A man who believed he was a god. His cruelty became entertainment, and his empire paid the price. His name was Caligula, and his short rule left behind a long shadow of terror. From Rome, we move to the Middle Ages, where a prince of Wallachia terrified Europe. Known for impaling thousands and displaying their bodies to strike fear into enemies, Vlad the Impaler became a symbol of pure darkness. But evil was not limited to Europe. In Cambodia, a dictator rose with the promise of equality and peace. Instead, he created one of the most horrifying genocides of the modern world. Pol Pot turned his nation into a nightmare, where millions lost their lives under his rule. Across the ocean, another tyrant used his power to build a world of isolation and fear. Kim Jong-il controlled his people with starvation, propaganda, and absolute punishment. His rule turned North Korea into a state of suffering that continues to this day. In the heart of Africa, a brutal warlord seized power through violence and terror. Idi Amin, known as the Butcher of Uganda, filled his country with fear. His cruelty was so extreme that even his own soldiers feared him. On the other side of Europe, a ruthless dictator used absolute power to eliminate anyone who disagreed. Joseph Stalin turned the Soviet Union into a land of fear, where people simply disappeared. His purges, famines, and camps took millions of innocent lives. In China, another ruler promised progress but instead created chaos and destruction. Mao Zedong's policies led to mass starvation and suffering on a scale the world had never seen. His rule changed China forever, leaving scars that still remain. History also remembers leaders who used religious power to justify brutality. The Spanish Inquisition, led by Tomás de Torquemada. And finally, we return to the Middle East, where a ruler used chemical weapons, fear, and absolute authority to control his nation. Saddam Hussein's violent rule left Iraq in decades of pain, war, and instability. These rulers came from different empires, nations, and centuries, yet they shared one thing in common. Their hunger for power destroyed countless lives. They remind us that leadership without compassion becomes a weapon of destruction. And their stories warn us that history can repeat itself if we forget the cost of absolute power. This is the dark side of world history, where ambition becomes cruelty and rulers become monsters. These are the most evil leaders the world has ever seen, and their legacies remain a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power.